Decades ago, I started growing food in my front and backyard, and I realized that my mission in life is to inspire and empower others to grow their own nutrient-dense, healthy organic food. Because of this, a lot of people have come to me with their gardening questions over the years, and that got me thinking, what if we put together a community that would help budding gardeners blossom? So I finally made the idea a reality with my Urban Farm U member program. Each month, your membership includes 3 live online events, a monthly class, a chit-chat with an expert, and a monthly coaching session, plus access to the experts on our member page and a significant discount on our signature courses. I'm deeply committed to transforming our global food system, and I do this by empowering you to grow your own food. The Urban Farm membership program is a simple way to get going. Please join me in transforming your food system today. To learn more, go to urbanfarmmembership.org or text membership to 33444. That's urbanfarmmembership.org or text membership to 33444.
You're listening to the Urban Farm Podcast, your partner in the Grow Your Own Food revolution. Whether you've just been introduced to urban farming or you're a lifelong advocate, we're sure you'll leave feeling more informed, equipped, and empowered to dig deeper into the soil of your local food economy. With you every step of the way, here's your host, Greg Peterson.
Today on the Urban Farm Podcast, we have Tim Amlaw of PureHarvest's Food to talk about his experience with urban farming hydroponic vegetables. Tim is an urban agrarian from a farm and an agriculture education training and background. He has dedicated his life to building farmer-based systems and programs to improve agriculture, humane care of animals, and now local urban agriculture. His current endeavor is PureHarvest's Food and the Project Arizona Urban Organic Veggie, rejuvenating vacant land in the city with scaled vegetable production and training a local workforce to meet all of the community's fresh vegetable needs. How cool is that? Welcome to the show today, Tim.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at now?
Yeah, I think it's a long path. I come from an agricultural family. Mm-hmm. We actually settled in North America in 1608, so we've been doing something around sustainable farming for a very, very long time. My personal background is ag education, so I've been an educator at the high school, college, and the state level, doing things around farming, and particularly looking at farm integration relative to new technologies such as computers. I had the first computers in an ag classroom, in any ag classroom in the country. They were first 24K machines from Apple Computer, and actually was on the phone with Steve. Yeah, I was on the phone with Steve Jobs weekly talking about how computers were going to be the future, and I'm not sure I believed it at that time. That was probably a stupid decision on my part, but I certainly utilized them. So, I've always looked at technology as being the way agriculture will always see continuous improvement. And that's really what this project is all about. PureHarvest Foods was founded a couple of years ago, and it really came out of a concept that I felt was a little challenging in our current systems of production, where we were really putting a lot of chemicals into our production systems, a lot of pesticides, a lot of herbicides, in order to have the abundance of food that we certainly enjoy. But those were potentially creating some certainly consumer resistance, as well as some potential health issues, which are now all being examined, in more thoroughness today.
Exactly.
So and our current project is the project in Arizona called Arizona Urban Organic Veggie. And what that project is all about is really about growing at scale local vegetable production so that the complete community can have access to fresher and more nutritious vegetables. And we're focused on leafy greens, so we're really focused on 4 types of lettuces. a romaine, butter lettuce, and a red and green leafy lettuce. Mm-hmm. So those are our 4 production systems. But our current system that we're ready to deploy in the Phoenix area is we'll roughly produce about 7 million heads of lettuce per annum.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty scaled production, but it really is geared to that underserved and food desert populations of Phoenix so that they can have access to, I think, a better product.
Right.
And that's kind of one of our underlying terms that we use, better farms for better food. Mm-hmm. And we just think that that's part of the new growth in local urban farming that's going to take place all over the country. And this is our initiative into that sector.
So 7 million heads of lettuce. That's a lot of lettuce.
That's a lot of lettuce. But it's, in reality, probably, local. So we've done a big consolidating move, right? For a lot of reasons, and good reasons, right? We've consolidated production around the country, but currently about 90% of all of our lettuce is produced 50% of the year in Yuma, Arizona, and 50% of the year in the Central Valley. Those
California.
production systems are. Yeah, those production systems are coming under challenge right now because of water and heat, the outside environments. We, in our urban farming method, we've created a proprietary turnkey system that actually we control the complete environment of the growing systems. And so we have no seasonality effects. So we grow it year-round. We do weekly harvests. So it's the freshest product that you could possibly get on a year-round basis.
Wow. How cool is that? And so 7 million heads, though, I still want to go back to that, in the Phoenix metropolitan area, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So, and we have 4.4 million people here, so I guess that was 7 million heads a year would be just a small drop in the bucket of how much lettuce we would need here in Phoenix, Arizona, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we see a lot of growth and scaling, but it was really, I got the number really from the 12% of the population that basically is underserved, which was a target of about 300,000, so about 10% maybe of the population. And that's where we thought should be our first objective, is to really go after that 10% need. And then we can grow from there. We think once people experience it, they're going to want more, so demand will definitely go up. And there's a lot of other farmers in the valley looking for local projects. So we're very supportive of all of the community's efforts to bring local food to the marketplace.
So your project, though, it sounds like it wants to be more holistic than just lettuce. Do you have plans moving into the future to grow food other than just lettuce?
Yeah, I do. But you have to realize, too, that in hydroponics, the use of LED lights is still relatively new. Even though hydroponics has been around, 40-plus years, LED utilization in being able to control the wavelengths of plant growth, from the seed to germination to final harvest, it still has a nuance to it, right? It still is a new science. And so a lot of the information in production, on the production side, is reasonably what we would call anecdotal.
Right.
It doesn't have a lot of statistical information that you can, just follow step 1, step 2, step 3 and have success.
Right.
So there's a little bit of experimentation that has to take place, and you want to step into that. So we've done a lot of plant testing. We have a complete pathology testing facility that we do all of our plant testing so that we can get our regulation of the nutrient uptakes that the plants need to get to their different growth cycles, as well as, get to the point where we know exactly in the growth cycle of every varietal what the light spectrum is, from a red or a green or a blue that they need for each part of that growth cycle. And our growth cycle is pretty unique. We are producing a plant plug with a group out of Tucson, Arizona. They're currently very prolific in doing grafted tomato plants for transplanting.
Oh, I've heard that.
And they're going to do our transplant for us, and then we'll just go ahead and put those into our growing facility. So we can actually, our site specification for growing the plant is to a 6-ounce plant. So that's our goal, and we can produce that 6-ounce plant through our control mechanisms basically in 2 weeks of growth.
Oh my gosh! So, hold on. You said you're growing a plant from a teeny plant start to a 6-ounce plant in
That's
2
correct.
weeks.
That's correct. So if you think about it, Greg, you've got the plant plug that's going to take 7 days from seed to germination and growth, ready to transplant.
Right.
Then you're going to take the transplanted plug and put it into the growing houses. And those houses, again, have 18 hours of light, right? So it's no longer just an 8-hour outdoor kind of environment, right? And by the way, in addition to that, they're getting direct access to nutrients as opposed to the roots having to sometimes go find the nutrients, right?
Exactly.
And so the nutrients is coming to the root system. And then in addition to that, you're controlling that air movement and the complete environment, so you're always at the right temperature to optimize that growth of the plant. So we get to that 6 ounces because of all of those environments, those controls of that environment that we can superimpose through innovation and technology.
Right. Wow. How cool is that? So
I think it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really think it's cool. I think when the community starts experiencing local produced vegetables at scale, where it's totally accessible, and we can talk about that here in a minute, but we've chosen to look at where the access points are currently, right? Now, we also want to work on new innovations and trying to create more access points, right, where people can actually source without going way out of their way to find a good head of lettuce.
Right.
But right now, the biggest access points are your retailers, right? So that's where people mostly buy their vegetables and certainly their lettuce.
Your grocery stores.
Yeah, we use Walmart as an example. Walmart service, from a volume standpoint, they have 100 outlets here in Arizona. And through their outlets, for instance, they service a big bulk of the population that needs this kind of freshness and quality.
Right.
And interestingly enough, the statistical numbers show that those people want to buy high quality product too, and fresher quality product, regardless of their income. Right. So their income stream is maybe $10,000 to $30,000 a year, but they have the same desires as anybody else in buying high quality food, and we think that that's a great starting point and access point for our project.
Nice. So you've thrown out several terms that I want to go back and kind of revisit. You said at scale twice. What does that mean?
Well, a lot of initiatives right now in local food are built around community gardens, which is really fantastic. They're built around farmers markets as an outlet. And so production is really not at the scale, meaning that the bulk need, right? The biggest population need. Like you explained, I was targeting 300,000 people, but you explained there's 4 million people. Well, if they all ate, if all 4 million ate, which the USDA, by the way, recommends a couple heads of lettuce a week for every one of that 4 million.
Oh,
so that's so that's your production potential. But in reality, the scale is right now with the current methods of producing food in community gardens or other small scale production in the local community, we're still subject to the bigger bulk production systems that like Yuma does for half of the year.
Right.
And while Yuma is Arizona, it's not quite local. So a good statistic for people to understand, and I use Walmart's numbers, but they average 7 days from the time that lettuce is picked, let's say, to get it on their shelf. And a head of lettuce has about a 14-day life. You can maybe extend it a little bit here or there, but so you've chewed up half of the head of lettuce life in freshness by distribution. We produce and harvest the same day. We pack the trucks and get it to their distribution center probably the same day, so they can have it on their shelves in Arizona in 48 hours. And that's unheard of right now. And we think that freshness is going to add to that consumer enjoyment of the product. Let's face it, people eat food to enjoy it. They eat it also because they need it nutritionally, but they also, if they don't enjoy it, they don't eat it and they waste it, right?
Right, exactly.
We know this. We know the statistics of waste. We waste about 40% of our food currently. Now, that's through all the systems of assembly and distribution and consumption. Right. But literally, we think this really cuts down on waste. It's the most sustainable production system. We use 10% of the water that a typical head of lettuce in a field crop production like Yuma would produce. So we think it's going to be better for the sustainability and water utilization in the future. Because we have such a short cycle of basically 2 weeks to harvest, we don't use any pesticides, and because we have no organic matter, we don't use any herbicide.
All right.
So it's completely herbicide and pesticide-free product, and we think that's going to be an added benefit that the consumers are going to enjoy.
Yeah, think?
And yeah. Well, and and the other thing is consumers have demonstrated over the last few years that organic is their preference. I mean, the demand for organic is the fastest growth in consumables. And, the organic process is somewhat complex. It's opening up now, to hydroponics. There's some discussion about it, of whether or not we want to continue to leave hydroponics with an organic certification. But we think that argument through good science will sustain itself, that it should be considered organic as long as your nutrient ingredients for the plant are from an organic source. And
that's important.
And as long as you do that, there are you do get all of the microbacterial activity within the root system in a hydroponic NFT system. So you actually are not foregoing any of that, which is then the argument that you don't get the same as you do if you put it in the ground because of all that different natural bacterial components that are in the soil. But you actually get that. You get that in hydroponics. There's some real interesting new publications out that talk about that at length.
Yeah.
So we think that having that fresh access is really what consumers want. I mean, they want to experience a really tasty head of lettuce, a tender head of lettuce, and something that gives them an eating experience when they sit down and make their salads for their families or their friends. So we just think this is going to improve that. So it also brings a better nutritional profile to all those people that will have the access to it.
Yeah, so that's kind of the road I wanted to go down next, and that's, you said you're getting the lettuce or what you're growing from the farm to the store in 48 hours. Why is that important?
Well, it's significant, right, from the freshness standpoint. So nutrients, for instance, so all products that you harvest start when you basically take the plant. So let's assume that most lettuce, you trim the roots off, right? So the minute you trim that roots off, you start what's considered a natural oxidation and enzyme activity in that plant.
Yes, of course.
To decompose that plant, right? So in nature, when something dies, it decomposes, and that's what composting basically is, right? So it's a natural process that's already built in to the genetics of the plant. So that's why you get your life expectancy of the plant at around 14 days. Again, like I said, you could extend it here or there.
Right.
But so what happens is, in this process is, if you burn 7 days of that normal plant life, one, you already got maybe some decomposition taking place, so you'll get some damage on the outside leaves, and so you have waste. So that's one negative attribute. The second thing that you'll get is you probably get a little change in the actual quality, the eating quality of the leaf as it starts to decompose.
Right.
You know, it'll get in my opinion, it gets a little more what I consider rigor, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You know, I bought a lot of heads of lettuce that are not lettuce anymore. They're really more like celery.
Yeah.
So, that's not a very scientific approach, but that's my opinion. But the other aspect that's really significant is that you, in this whole kind of natural composting of the plant life, you lose the nutrient value through oxidation. So really the plant nutrients start to really go away. So, and listen, lettuce can be a really good source of some antioxidants, and certain types of plants are a little bit better. So the fresher you can eat that head of lettuce, we used to say it I've been in the cattle business most of my life, and we used to say in the cattle, no piece of meat was better frozen. And it's the same thing with lettuce. No head of lettuce is better if it's 5 to 7 days old or 14 days old before you start to consume it. Yeah. So the closer to the harvest time that you can have that head of lettuce on your dinner plate, the better you're going to be relative to the nutrient overall value. Experience and the health and nutrient value of the plant. Yeah. Exactly.
By the way, while we were chatting, I did the math on 4.4 million people in the Phoenix metropolitan area. 1 head of lettuce per week, not 2. You said the USDA said 2. I figured 1, right?
Yeah.
That's 228,800,000 heads of lettuce. You got some work to do there, buddy.
That's a great business growth, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So, it'll be not just my generation, it'll be a couple of them coming, and exactly. I think eventually you'll see the Yuma farmers and those guys getting into, and that's part of our project design, right? We want to be inclusive, not only in delivering to the local community, but because this innovation is recent, we want to invite everybody to participate in it, and grow it. Because look at the opportunity you just exampled. That's a perfect opportunity. Everybody can have part of that growth in how we change our production of these particular items, right?
Yeah.
Now, each vegetable item that we could grow, besides just the lettuce, for instance, could, there's huge other demands. I mean, you have all kinds of other leafies, even non-flowering plants. That could be grown and have demand within the system. So there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of local workforce employment. Now, it's not that the 45,000 workers that are in Yuma in the season when they're producing, they're certainly an important workforce. But we also think that we're able to, because we have less perishability and a few other things relative to cost, we actually can pay the employees in our environments a little bit more than an outside field worker. And in addition to that, guess what they're doing? They're working in a 78 degree or 70 degree temperature all year round versus 80 or 90 degrees out in the field for the day. So we think the environment relative to the workforce is going to be significant, and that's going to create longevity because if your workers are happy, the business runs pretty well then.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. So this is a vertical urban farming concept. Why did you decide to go there?
Yeah, so obviously land is the United States has an abundance of land. I mean, we probably, maybe Australia has more surface area as a continent than we have as a country, but whether or not it's all usable, it's a different thing. But we have probably one of the largest arable land resources. So land has always been the target for most of agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened now is you have a lot of different things going on. You have land that has now, for instance, Arizona and along the rivers and stuff, a lot of that land has salt buildup,
Right.
from irrigation.
Yep.
And it's creating kind of a toxic capability to actually get the kind of productivity that we previously had experienced in those kinds of, growing systems. And so I think when I looked at it, one, I started with the driver of trying to shorten the distribution cycle, right? Again, taking it from that 7 days to 48 hours or so. And that was the first driver that I looked at. The second driver I looked at is that I think people need to be connected to their food. I think we've kind of migrated away from who we are relative to our food. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I can't worry about farmers because I get my food at the grocery store. And
I love that.
And I heard that even when I was early on milking dairy cows.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big event around dumping milk at the time because of price, and they interviewed people in New York City, and they said, well, that's really horrible that those farmers have to dump milk, but I get my milk at the grocery store. And so
Such
it's
an incredible,
about
that's an incredible disconnect.
Yeah, and I think the millennials, I think the younger generation, certainly social media has helped. It's projected this sense of responsibility around the type of food we want to consume, the quality of food that we want to consume, the safety of food that we want to consume. And all those things are major drivers. I experienced that in my previous tenure as the head of American Humane Association's Humane Farm Animal Care program. And, we experienced the total transition of agriculture in looking at how we care for animals. Not, again, that we were trying to care for animals poorly,
right?
But we just needed a re-education on how we were going to care for animals going forward. And we were able to create a tremendous program in humane care that now does over 1.3 billion animals a year under animal audit every year, where those farmers are participating in a third-party observation of their of their farming practices.
Beautiful.
And asking for somebody on the outside to tell them, do I need a little correction here or do I need a little correction there? And that's translated into, consumer buying trends that really are saying now with eggs, for instance, we want cage-free eggs. Retailers are asking for cage-free eggs. We see the same trends in urban farming. We think that consumers right now are demanding fresher product. Consumers are demanding more nutritious products. They want less pesticides and less herbicides. I won't get into some of the particulars, but there's some really challenging things that are currently affecting herbicide use, for instance.
Right.
And so consumers are really saying, when it comes to our food, we want pure food. We want just the food. You grow it, you harvest it, you put it on my plate, i.e. our name of our company being PureHarvest.
Right.
Every harvest we do is going to be pure. And so it's going to be raised with the best organic nutrients under the best lighting conditions for the plant's humane environment, basically, giving the plant the best ability to express its genetic makeup as a plant, and then harvest it without any additions to it and bring it to the consumer. And we think that's going to be a trend that's going to continue across the board, all of agriculture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Plus, we put it right in the middle of the city, and it's there to harvest and get to people right away.
Yeah. And, and the nice thing with us is I deployed the largest amount of video monitoring in the animal production side of agriculture. And we're going to have video monitoring in our production system, so you could go online and watch a head of lettuce grow if that excites you. So,
there you go.
but huge transparency will come with the system. You'll know everything we're doing.
That would excite me if I could watch it in super fast motion,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It might get a little boring to watch it over 2 weeks.
So I'm going to shift on you, and I'd like for you to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you might have learned from it.
Yeah, so, being 63 years of age, I think we all have our challenges in life, and some have been, some of our adventures have been successful, some have not.
Oh, yeah.
I think my biggest disappointment in life is I helped discover basically the control mechanism for muscle growth in all mammals, and particularly in cattle. And we were launching a vertical program, much like the vegetable program, but it was right at the time when the S&L crisis hit.
Oh, yeah.
And in all startups, the biggest single issue on a startup enterprise is undercapitalization.
Yep.
And so we hit at a time where my business partner at the time had a big loss due to the S&L, and he couldn't fund the final constructions of our processing facility. And we ended up having to close that whole project down. We lost many millions of dollars, and that probably was my biggest disappointment, because it was really well thought out. It was ready to go to market, but we just, outside circumstances around capital, just stopped us from getting there. Fortunately, with this project, we have we've been working hard really on capital formation, and we've created a really good capital pool, and so we're ready to go to market here soon. We'll probably be in market starting the 1st of August. It'll take us about 12 to 15 weeks, and we'll be in the marketplace.
Wow. So that's like right now.
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
We're excited. Yeah, this is a very exciting time. We're very excited.
Fantastic. So your takeaway then, I hear your takeaway from that, and I'll put it in quotes, failure, was to be more financially sound up front, because it sounds like this project is funded and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's, if I can tell you anything I've done, this project's evolution has been about 2 years now here in Arizona. And the biggest part of that time that I spend is capital formation. And it's been a hard thing to sell, to be perfectly honest, even though it may be logical to you and it may be logical to me and maybe 90% of your listeners. When it comes to capital anymore is really just interested in what's my return, what's my risk, and how soon can I get all my money back. So, you just have to redesign your thinking to deal and respect the capital you're bringing into a project. And there's been some failures in hydroponics. Recently, for instance, as the market starts to mature, there was just a $22 million failure in San Francisco. There was a $15 million failure in a project in Atlanta just the other day. And there's many more failures. And so, you always have to be in agriculture. It's always, we get used to, I've been in ag all my life, so you get used to boom and bust relative to revenues. Right. But one of the big things with agriculture is don't be underfunded if you're in agriculture. Get well funded. So you're right. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. So what do you consider your biggest success?
I think my biggest success probably is American Humane's. I brought all of my knowledge into that nonprofit and worked with a phenomenal team I was able to put together there. And again, the organization provided all the seed capital to develop the audit program. That audit program started when I took over with about 1 million animals under about a 40-page paperwork audit on each farm and about 120 days for corrective action reports to go back to the farmers, which I said to everybody, my God, the birds will be dead by the time we get them, tell them what they need to change. And we changed all that so that now they do corrective actions almost immediate on the exit interview. And today, 8 years later or so, that program does 1.3 billion animals under animal audit, and from 1 million animals only 8 years ago. Nice. So, I take I take a lot of credit in the vision and the design and the early management of that company, or that project, that division of American Humane. It's a great organization, and so we kept to mission. But I really, I would say in my career, plus my teaching career, I think I made great strides early on in teaching, and probably the software development that I did and the training curriculums that I did around computer use. But there's been a lot of great times in my life. I can't complain about any part of it, even the failures for that matter.
Yeah. So what drives you?
Yeah, I think my drive is, I've been in agriculture all my life. I'm 63 years old. I want to bring more farmers to agriculture. And I think the best way to excite new farmers in agriculture is urban living and urban farming.
Yeah.
So if you can allow farmers to be involved in agriculture, and I think it's right across the board, where you have more farmers involved and engaged in producing the food they eat and their neighbors eat, that's what drives me every day, bringing more good food to the community that is consuming it. And, we're growing to 9 billion people by 2050 is what they're telling us. And
over half of them live in the cities.
That's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah,
exactly. You're exactly correct. That's where all the action is.
Yeah.
And for good reason, right? Everybody wants a cell phone. They want to go out to a bar on a Friday night or whenever. Right. And, they want a life that's a little less committed as the old, I grew up on a farm, right, out in the countryside. Yeah. So I'm not saying I didn't like that lifestyle, but it's a different lifestyle now, and we need to engage people in the food they consume, and this is the best way to keep them engaged.
Yeah. Beautiful. So what one final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
Well, I would say, certainly would say to everybody, get involved in urban agriculture any way you can. Join your local community support systems. We're a member of the Maricopa County Food Coalition, which is a great place to go and listen to everybody's views on the problems of food in Maricopa County. And I think, get engaged in that. If you want to be a local farmer, and certainly, you can always contact us. We have single growing systems with one complete turnkey unit up to the 7 million head a year facility. So we've got any scale you want, and we would invite anybody from any community, from your listeners that's interested in local food. We can give them the most efficient system going and help them to get started. But get involved in urban agriculture. That's the future of our agricultural production. And it's, again, not that we're going to still not have to have field crop production and grains and all the rest, but there's, in this category, there's just a lot of need for it. As you explained, we've got a lot of growth ahead of us.
Yeah, that is for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your experience with us today, Tim. It's been a treat getting to chat with you.
That's great, and you can always get a hold of us at urbanorganicveggie.com.
urbanorganicveggies.com, perfect. And an email address, or just go there?
info@urbanorganicveggie.com.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you for all your great information. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast. Decades ago, I started growing food in my front and backyard, and I realized that my mission in life is to inspire and empower others to grow their own nutrient-dense, healthy organic food. Because of this, a lot of people have come to me with their gardening questions over the years, and that got me thinking, what if we put together a community that would help budding gardeners blossom? So I finally made the idea a reality with my Urban Farm U member program. Each month, your membership includes 3 live online events, a monthly class, a chit-chat with an expert, and a monthly coaching session, plus access to the experts on our member page and a significant discount on our signature courses. I'm deeply committed to transforming our global food system, and I do this by empowering you to grow your own food. The Urban Farm membership program is a simple way to get going. Please join me in transforming your food system today. To learn more, go to urbanfarmmembership.org or text membership to 33444. That's urbanfarmmembership.org or text membership to 33444.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen 3 days a week for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.